What if failure is part of the journey towards success and purpose? Welcome to the But First She Failed podcast. I'm Paola Soares, a former journalist who feared, failed, and overcame. Now I'm on a mission to help others redefine failure and chase bold dreams. Join me as I talk to trailblazing women that share wisdom, strategies, and get vulnerable about how moments of failure propel them to where they are today. Get ready to get inspired. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out this first episode of the But First She Failed podcast. My name is Paola Soares, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm so grateful that you're here. In this episode, I'm going to share my story of failure and what ultimately led me to being so passionate about helping others redefine failure. I'm also going to share a little bit more about what you can expect to hear on future episodes of this podcast, so stay tuned. So a little bit of background on me. My name is Paola, and I am the mommy of a very curious and active baby boy that keeps me on my toes. Literally, not figuratively. He's literally always keeping me on my toes. I'm always running around after him as he becomes more and more mobile. I'm also married to my husband, Sean, who is my sounding board for all things, including this podcast at times. And I live in Miami, Florida. I moved here 10 years ago from Chicago, where I was born and raised, a few months after graduating from college. I'm also a former national news journalist, and now I'm on a mission to normalize the idea of failure. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because I myself was stuck in that idea of failure for a long time. And to be 1,000% transparent with you all, I'm still not all the way over it. I still struggle with that at times. And that's why I really decided to create this podcast, because I believe as I speak to these trailblazing women that are inspirational and hear their stories of moments of failure and how that got them to where they are today, I hope that not only will I learn things that I can apply to my life, but I really hope that you as a listener will able to gain some nuggets of wisdom and, use things that you learn in this podcast to apply it to your own lives. My hope is really to normalize the idea of failure because it's part of the journey and it happens to everyone. I know that in my life, I believe that lie. I believe that the successful people that I saw all around me and in the media, I really thought that they never failed. I know it really sounds crazy when I say it out loud and over here to the mic, but I really felt like they were another type of person. And so when I had that moment of failure in my life, it was crazy. Like I did not feel normal at all. I didn't feel like I was on this journey or was part of the journey towards success. No, instead, I did a really unhealthy thing and I internalized it, believing not that I had failed, but rather that I was a failure. Believing that lie kept me there for a long time. And I wish I could say that it was a few days or a few months, but the reality is it left me there for years. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, but it really left me there for years. And the thing is, I believe that I'm not the only one. Over the years, I've had so many conversations and just seen it in friends and in family members and in different people. And I've seen how sometimes people can stay in those feelings, not only for years, but sometimes even decades and longer. So I'm really, really passionate about, normalizing this idea of failure. And I wish that back then I would have known what I know now, that failure is an invaluable part of the journey towards success. And then not one of those super successful people that I looked up to was immune from that. Sometimes you'll also hear me say, quote unquote, failure, because I don't really truly believe that it's a failure. Over the years, something else that I've learned is that, and I actually heard this in a saying that really stuck with me, right? That in life, it's not either you win or you lose. It's actually you either win or you learn, right? And that really stuck with me because I've really learned that, those moments that we call quote unquote failure, those moments are actually the moments in our lives where we learn the most. I know that in my life, I've learned the most from those valley seasons, from those low moments. And that's why I say quote unquote, because I really don't believe that it's really a failure. It's really something that we learn. But I know the lie, and I know how powerful that word is, and I know how real it feels, so that's why I actually decided to name this podcast that. So here's a little bit of my story. So since I was 12 years old, all I ever wanted to be was a reporter. I really just wanted to be a journalist, right? So I went to DePaul University for journalism, and in college, I got all these great internships at these cool major media conglomerates, and I got cool opportunities to host shows and interview celebrities and do all this really cool stuff in the field. And it was incredible because a few months after graduating from college, by the grace of God, because that's the only way that I can explain it, I landed an opportunity as a national news producer at my dream company. And I mean dream company. I had grown up watching this channel and seeing all the anchors and the reporters as a child, and I could see myself and look up, see myself in them and look up to them. And I had always envisioned myself working there one day and getting married and starting a family in Miami. And so when I got that call and that opportunity, I moved without any hesitation at all. I moved across the country with very little money and very big dreams, and I started this new chapter in my life. I came to Miami and I loved it. Yes, I mean, of course, when I say, it wasn't as glamorous as it sounds, it's there's a lot of challenges that come with it, right? It was hard, and there were a lot of tears, and there were definitely more than two handfuls of times that I can count, moments where I was crying in the bathroom stall, and there were challenges, and there were a lot of things, right? It wasn't all, glamorous. But the reality is I loved getting to work with big names in the industry. I loved getting to work on cool stories and getting to meet celebrities and, do these really cool inspirational stories, and sometimes traveling, and most of all, doing what I loved. It was a dream come true, and I was on track professionally, right? I was doing these big things in my early and mid 20s, and my resume looked killer at the time, right? It looked great. The sky was the limit. Well, fast forward 4 years after learning and growing with this company that I loved and I had worked for, for all those years, I had such a great experience. Well, the company that I worked for got together with another major news outlet that you would all know here in the United States. They came together and they created a joint venture, right? It was a news startup. And at the time, it was the talk of the industry. It was like a great new young company, edgy shows. And it was a talk of the town, legit. Like everyone talked about it. We were all over the media, really well known. And so when I was given the offer to advance my career with this new company, I said yes. And I celebrated. I was ecstatic, right? Most of the company were, people around my age, and it was literally such a fun experience. Even to this day, I'm just like, man, that was such a fun season, getting to work with so many cool and young journalists and getting to launch this new network that was a multi-million-dollar project with state-of-the-art brand new newsrooms, and at the time I was on top of the world, really. Everything seemed perfect. The idea of anything but success never even crossed my mind. Well, 1 year later, after embarking on what I thought would be a catalyst and that would exponentially launch my career, the opposite happened, right? I got fired. And it's actually crazy for me to say those words because I actually did not say those words for many, many years. The way it all happened, I just was like, I kind of felt like did I get laid off? Like I wasn't, and I really didn't come to terms with that term in my vocabulary until just recently, as I've been working on this podcast, right? That essentially I got fired, right? And my world came crashing down on me. Because of unhealthy mindsets and unrealistic views on success and failure, I didn't feel like I failed. It was crazy. Rather, I felt like a failure. I felt so low, guys. I think in my case, my self-worth was actually wrapped up in my career. And so when I lost that job and, that business card really, and, that accolade, I guess you can say, I had lost my identity as well, so it was really, really hard for me. And that's a whole other tangent and a whole other story that we can visit. Having your identity wrapped in your career, that's a whole other thing that we can visit at another time, but that's also extremely unhealthy. And we'll get into that, as the podcast progresses. But, as that all happened, I was so embarrassed when I got fired, right? I was so embarrassed and so ashamed. And instead of getting up and getting back out there, I did the complete opposite. No, I actually ended up secluding myself, and I avoided friends and former colleagues at all costs. I was really too ashamed to let people know what happened and to talk about it. I spent months trying to apply to different positions in my field, and I got nothing. It was starting to affect my relationship, and because of the financial strain and, all of that. So I started essentially without, because of the financial strain, I started working in anything to make ends meet. And before I knew it, time had gone by and I just felt so stuck, And see, I started believing, as I felt stuck, I started believing that I was a failure, right? It all, all of this deepened my fear of failing, so much so that I spent years unable to set out again and unable to try to do what I loved. It was just crazy. I started to fear failure so much so that I spent years in this crazy paralyzed state. And I'm serious. I spent years there being paralyzed. I was so scared to move forward and to do, the things that I loved or try again, that I just stayed there. And so I ended up actually working in a lot of different, I guess you can say, career paths that were a little bit outside of my, my passion, right? I started working in marketing and public relations for a while. I ended up actually going back to TV for a little bit for an opportunity that just kind of came to my doorstep. But the show actually got canceled. They pulled the plug right before it went on air. So then I was laid off in that case. But all these things, it kind of became almost easier to not go after the things that I loved, right? Journalism, content creation, doing all these things. Like, these are things that I love. Storytelling. I love these things. They make me passionate, right? They make me feel alive, right? But because I was so scared of failing again, I put those things aside for a long time, and I tried to, I think, make myself into something else. I think I tried to excel in different paths. And the beautiful thing is that I think all the things that we go through, we can use them. Nothing is wasted at all. And that's a good part of the story, right? That all the different things that I tried out, they have all been helpful to where I am today. But yeah, for years I was just so scared to go back into what I loved, and it was easier to just live outside of that, right? And so it was crazy, but like I said, it's a journey. This whole, all of this has been a journey over the last few years. And through the years, I have found healing, and I have been able to redefine failure. And in another episode, I think we can maybe go over all the things and all the steps that I kind of went over, and kind of a little bit more of that specific part of the journey. But I will say there was one story that really kind of resonated with me a lot, and it really helped me with catching a new vision and redefining failure, right? And kind of seeing the significance that it has, the power that failure has as well. And that was the story of Sarah Blakely. You guys probably know Sarah Blakely. She is the founder of the women's apparel brand that is a powerhouse brand, Spanx, which probably most of you ladies listening have either used it or used a knockoff version of it over the last, however many years. But yeah, she is a self-made billionaire, and she created Spanx in her 20s, and she's just incredible. She's one of the richest women, I think, I don't know if in the world, but at least in the United States, as a billionaire, And her story on failure is really pretty cool. I thought it really helped me a lot. But she shares of when she was a child, how her father would go around the dinner table and he would ask her and her brother, he would ask them, "What did you guys fail at this week?" And at first I didn't get it, but then it blew my mind. And essentially what he was doing was he was celebrating more of the process rather than the outcome, right? He was celebrating them trying, at whatever thing they were trying that week as a child, and, not giving so much significance to the outcome. And he was also normalizing the idea of failure, right? He's like, "What did you fail at this week?" And by normalizing the idea of failure, she talks about it. She says that contributed greatly to her success, right? And I think so too, because as a young woman, I don't think it's incredible that she didn't have that fear of failure that so many of us deal with, right? She didn't have that fear of, oh my gosh, what if I put all this money into this business and it goes under or whatever? She just went for it. She went and she created Spanx, and look at her legacy now, and look at where she's at today because of that, And I just thought that was incredible. It's a really amazing story, an inspirational story of what can happen if you're not scared of failure, of what can happen when we redefine failure and make it as ammunition or as a powerhouse or as something that we can use to our advantage, right? Where we can learn from it and grow from it and know that it's part of the journey. And each failure that we combat or come across, it actually gets us closer to that success that we're looking for. It gets us closer to the results that we want, right? And it kind of leads us to our purpose and to our destiny and all those things. And I just think And that's why I'm on a mission to normalize failure and to help women redefine failure so they can chase their bold dreams, all the dreams that are inside of them, right? Like I said, I'm not 1,000% in the clear, guys. So please don't, think that I'm an expert, or I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything like that. I'm on this mission with you, or on this journey with you. And, I hope that as I have these conversations, these great conversations with these women that are very inspiring, right? And I hope that you as a listener will, as you hear these candid conversations with these trailblazing women, that are dominating in their industries, and as, entrepreneurs, influencers, and all that you will be able to take away something tangible, that you'll be able to learn something that you can apply to your life. And, my hope is really to hopefully help not only equip myself, but equip you guys, you, the listener, and that we can do this journey together and we can go after our dreams, whatever they may be. So thanks so much for joining me as I shared a little bit of my story of failure. I hope you liked it, and thanks so much for being here. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the But First She Failed podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review. It really helps us so much, and we'd be so grateful. Hope to see you next time.